So when we talk a little bit more about the male form we're talking about right now, and I think Georgie brought forward a lot of things, and we all remember our fathers, and culturally seen, even in different cultures, fathers have their special place. And some fathers are derived by their children as blessings, and some fathers are derived by their children as curses. But when you look to the depth, really the depth of male-female, and then it's not even clear anymore which is male and female, but what we're talking about is, what Georgie brought forward already, is love and care. And it's, when you really look to the depth, it's not clear if love is born from care or care is born from love. At a certain point they become inseparable. And in a way, when we look to the female line, it seems that the female line is much more, there is a lot of care there as well, but it's much more a kind of incarnation, more of love. As the male line is more an incarnation of care. And in the depth, both is there, love and care, in every person. And then through generations and through lives of getting hurt, sometimes getting hurt by our parents, as you know, the way the care and the love is expressed, because behind it is always love and care. But the way the love and the care is expressed, it gets damaging. It's corrupted in a way. It's corrupted because it's moving from something which is absolutely unconditional in its source. Unconditional care and unconditional love is moving more and more into polarity and more into basically into the person in personhood, into woundedness, into the pain of the parent. And sometimes becomes more an expression of the pain of the parent as that it's an expression of the depth which is there as well. And so often, if we have a chance to really have a deep talk with our parents, even if you had a father who was really like a tyrant, a dictator, if you really talk to the depth, you see that even the way he was treating you, his pose, what is behind it is care. This is the way care could be expressed through him. So I bring this forward not kind of, to say, okay, we should be in peace with our parents or whatever they did to us. It's not about that, but it's so incredibly helpful if we're able to connect to the caring part of our Father in understanding. We can see much more easily where our Father was broken, where he was able maybe to unconditionally express a little bit, where he made sacrifices in his life. What's important is that there is no guilt, no obligation in care. Care is there or it's not. You can take it or leave it in the depth. So from care, so often what comes is protection. From love can come protection as well. And this is one of the crazy things which goes from generation to generation, is, you know, this protection, that we have the feeling that we have to protect our children against life. We have to protect our children against other people. And sometimes this protection is damaging, because it's so much interfering with our feeling of freedom and the feeling of kind of wanting to express the depth of your qualities, who you are, with our own naturalness. But still, this protection is there to protect against damage. It's born from care. And often, where is the most care we express to others in this way is the deepest damage. So if we look to the epigenetic, you know, the often epigenetic, the same trauma is in us. And then there is in our fathers a certain behavior based on this epigenetics and own experience, and then we move with it as well in a different way. It's the same kind of protectiveness is coming forward, or absolutely the opposite. Because the way we felt that there was taking care of us in this sometimes dictatorial protectiveness, we absolutely don't want to do this to our children, because it was so damaging to us. But the pain which is touched beyond it, we're not able to work out. So we take another position in which we kind of express the same trauma in another way. We can hardly take form as a father. We can hardly put borders. We feel that we are powerless to really protect, to contain the family. It's difficult to come to our strength, to come to the depth of power inside ourselves. And all kind of mixed forms. You know, you cannot kind of talk about this too general, but again, because it's colored in so personal, but still you can see through the lines of males, and often, you know, moving from dictatorial to kind of, you know, having less form and dictatorial again, and sometimes a few areas more dictatorial, a few generations, and then some generations not, and then it kind of moves up again. And it's interesting, where is this coming from, this kind of this dictatorial behavior in males especially? In females you see it as well, but especially in males. This
to do with form?
It has to do with the form. How do you give form to your malehood? But then it's a damaged form. It's not a natural form. So where would this come from? What do you think?
Pain.
What?
Pain.
For sure from pain. There is a protectiveness in it. But especially from a deep feeling of being forsaken, not being part of. It's basically an over-screaming of being separate. Separate from the unity between the mother and the child. So what do we do when we separate from the unity of mother and child? So we can draw back and say, okay, you know, I'm not part of this, I have my own life. Or what you can do, in a way, is saying, okay, I'm going to take care for the whole. But then taking care for the whole, you know, it's a little bit overdone very easily. You recognize that. It's your responsibility, you take care, you overdo it a little bit, and still there is this pain of not really being part of this holy union between mother and child, a newborn child. So you start to kind of, you know, to regulate a little bit more. In taking care, you have to be somebody as well, isn't it? So you make yourself a little bit stronger. So you're going to decide a little bit for mother and child. This is where it starts. It's very, very, very basic. And then, of course, it can get totally out of control. But what you see often by very dictatorial fathers is the other side of it is an incredible loneliness, not being part of. And exactly that's what they get back. Because, you know, the mother and the children, they kind of come together and they say, oh my God, Daddy's coming home. Clean up the place, he's coming home.
Wait till your father comes.
Or wait till your father comes. Whatever we get, you know. So it's a kind of bond between the mother and the children, and then the horrible dictator is coming home. So he comes home, and there's already kind of a dread in the house. I'm enlarging it a little bit, the story, but the dread is already in the house. And then the dread in the house, you know, the dictator also got feelings. Maybe one feeling, but, you know, he comes in the house and the dread is there already. So what attitude do you take in this?
Be invisible.
No, becoming the dread.
Becoming the dread. Immediately kind of have to connect with everybody with a demand, with a kind of something negative or kind of, you know, pushing down. Immediately kind of, you know, because you need to have your place. If you don't have a place in your family, where are you? Who are you?
Well, you have now talked about a father.
I'm talking about the father. You know, the children disappears, the mother disappears, and the father comes in like this. This is just one example of male.
If the little boy in that family was suffering very much, this kind of father, his response from his body can be to abandon the family completely. And in a way that's also coming from care, because I don't want to hurt my children like my father hurt me, so I'm going to absent myself. Exactly. I'm going to protect my children from me, the male. Yeah. So it really tends to flip it onto its head.
Yeah.
Duality.
Yeah. Or basically, you know, taking care, but not really connecting with the family, not really being there. The kind of absent father who's really taking care for the family, but is not really there, emotionally not really connected. Drawing back, not to become destructive, not to become humiliating.
And not to get hurt.
And not to get hurt, and not to hurt especially. So as a male, you know, what's the best way not to hurt your children? Exactly. Close down. Not show too much feelings, too much emotions. Give space. And sometimes too much space. So it's an incredible complex psychology when you look into it. And you know, the only thing what we can do is give a few examples of movements. But the whole psychology is incredibly complex. If you look to the child, you know, the father has a certain position for a child. It's a God. And in a way, you want to have affirmation from the God that you're okay. This is so important. We till our grave, we can fight with our parents, both the mother and the father, you know, to get this affirmation, you're okay. It's so important. And then there is a father who is kind of distant, is able to give this affirmation. There's some sexual damage, sometimes through generations. So as a girl, you grow up, and then at a certain moment, you know, there is this period in the 10 ages when you become a woman, and your father is backing off. So the affirmation on womanhood cannot be given by the father. All of this, it's an incredible, complex psychology, has an influence. And basically what's important to see, it's all coming from damage. On the sexual level, with a lot of males, the damage which is there is whatever they do, they're a perpetrator. They're a perpetrator. You know, when they have sexual feelings, it's already too much. When you're aroused or you think that a lady is very yummy, it's already too much, you know. It's like you go over the borders. It's almost rape. So again, two possibilities are there. Or you kind of, you know, you're going to stand in your malehood and you're going to show that you've got the right to have these feelings. I go to extremes. Or you kind of, you know, close down and you hold back and you hardly express.
What is perpetrator?
A perpetrator and dader.
Do you mean actual physically perpetrating or just having feelings?
Both.
You know,
Also physically, one moment, I'm the male here.
I think I inspired him.
No.
A good subject.
No, also physically. You know, you have to understand, to physically you have to, in order to have sex, you have to penetrate the female. And there is something very kind of vulnerable in a female to be penetrated. There's a lot of lust and you love to do it. But at the same time, in the whole movement of penetration, there's something for a male very helpless in it. It's kind of, you lose yourself at the same time in the female as well, if you're really open. It's a lot. I think for females, it's really a lot to be penetrated. But for a male to penetrate, it's, if you're really open, you lose yourself immediately in the female. You disappear in the female, unless you hold back. But when you hold back, there's a kind of control which doesn't feel right either. You hold back also in totally surrender to the feeling which is there, to the togetherness, the unity. So it becomes a game. And this game is already kind of a game in which males are responsible for the sexual well-being of females. So they have to perform. You understand? It's really cultural, so you have to perform. So when are you a good male? You know, as your wife or girlfriend.
Scorecards at the end.
Exactly, you know, at least has 4 or 5 different orgasms. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but not a lot. This makes a successful male. So that means you're kind of, you know, to be able to do this, if you want to do this, is asking relaxation, control, but where is the equality in it, the togetherness in it? It becomes an act. And when it's an act, when you cannot be helpless as a male, when you cannot kind of, you know, natural move with the body as it is, which is maybe different in the rhythm as a female, but you can, you know, later up you can always kind of make it okay or whatever. It is not that important, but, you know, if you have to kind of keep it up, have to keep up the appearances.
So walk right into that one.
No, but it's important to understand what's happening then.
So can you bring that back to the girl at puberty with her father?
Yeah.
Thank you.
You want me to bring that back?
Yeah, because I'm not understanding exactly what you're trying to say about that relationship. If it's not a physical penetration, it sounded like you were implying there might be a psychological, even biologic penetration without physical.
Okay, so I'll let me finish this story and then I go back to that story. And if you can, I can also interrelate the stories. But then we go more to the female, and it's more the male thing. But so the first thing is as a male, that means, you know, that a successful male is a male who's totally under control of his own sex life, who's under control of the partner, giving the partner orgasms. So this control thing, based in the basis in the sexuality, what is seen as a successful male is very strong. So what's the difference between control, so superiority is in this control, and dictatorship? It's so much in the basis. That makes it extremely difficult for males to be vulnerable, to surrender in a way. Because the picture of what we think is expected is so much different.
Is it again the care and the love?
It's really care and love. And of course from love, what's there is also the fear to lose, to be heartbroken. So and that's a corruption of love, but it's connected there.
It's the care aspect for protection, dictator.
Exactly.
It's
overdone. It's a corruption. The dictator, the one who's in control, the one who's working, take care of the whole family, and at the same time, kind of, you know, gives the mother a little bit of money, the children a little bit of money, kind of, to control also the money flow. To say it like this, the old-fashioned father. It's all based on care. Management, care. If you look into it, it's not the most pleasant form, but it's a form. So the girl who's moving into puberty, who, you know, there is this period in growing up between daughter and father, that there is this, can be, not always, but there can be this deep bond in which there is really a closeness between daughter and father. And if the father is able to be physical, you know, the daughter will sit on the father's lap. And often what you see in the growing up, the big example of male in the daughter, for the daughter is the father. And how the father is reacting to the daughter has a big influence on how she will basically would be able to connect to males, how she sees males. What is a good male and what's not a good male. The father is the basic example. That gives fathers quite a responsibility. And then the daughter is moving into puberty and sexuality awakens in the daughter. So the last thing, what most fathers want, is that they will mess up their daughters in that area. And a lot of fathers mess up their daughters in that areas. In the closeness which is there between father and daughter and the awakening sexuality in the daughter awakens the father also, which is absolutely, totally natural. In this, you know, we are kind of are moving with each other. There is not such a difference. You know, if you're in a room with somebody who is really horny, you'll feel the horniness. And your body will react to it, if you like it or not. Our bodies are reacting to us. It's the same as somebody's really angry. We have the tendency to move in anger as well. If somebody's really fearful, we have the tendency to become fearful as well. When a person is really happy, it lifts us up as well. We recognize this. On all these different levels, we vibrate with each other. It influences. So when the father is not able to totally relax in this feeling, to be free in this, free in his own sexuality, so a stress is building up. So this stress, again, epigenetic, can move in different directions. It can move in the form of sexual abuse, and it can move in the other extreme in the form of a total drawn back for the father. He doesn't want this with his daughter. So what he does, he starts to reject the daughter. Sometimes very strict, and sometimes with softness. Don't come too close. No physicality anymore. It doesn't fit anymore. It's not okay anymore to sit on my lap. It's not okay to come too close. It's sometimes not okay to hug. The daughter gets this as a deep feeling of rejection of her femininity. It gives a very deep insecurity. There is something wrong with me, with my femininity. I get rejected because I'm growing breasts, because I get sexual feelings. So there is something wrong with this. I don't want this. So it gives a very insecure feeling about femininity, and when there's an insecure feeling about femininity, which is a certain damage, and also when it goes slowly, step by step, it's also a kind of contraction, a trauma. So females can try to heal this trauma by either trying to get it from a lot of other males or other males, but not being able to really have not the self-respect to put right borders. So this okay you didn't get from your father, and not the feeling of that what is there in your femininity, which is more moving through the fathers and through the mothers, that this is really precious and special and beautiful and something which should be treated with the biggest respect. If a father is able to treat his daughter like this, it's much more easy for the daughter to put the right natural borders. But if it's rejected, you don't exactly where the border, you don't know where the borders are. So there is a confusion. So you try to get the okay in a different way. So that's a little bit the story. I could go on for hours again in this, but that's a little bit more precise the story I was referring to. Is that enough for you, Mo?
Yeah. Or didn't have okay from nobody.
Didn't have okay from the mother and not from the father. Then you have the whole interaction between the mother and the father, that sometimes when the daughter is very close to the mother, to the father, there is an incredible jealousy of the mother, which also has an influence. So we can make it as complex as we want. We all have our own story here. It's a dance. A dance.
And to complicate it even more, let's be clear that the mother can very much move through her father, inner father aspect, and model the male side in the attitude towards the female as a sexual object or whatever.
Yeah.
And come, shame on you, kind of, this kind of movement. She can move through the patriarchal line, which will come from her father. And the father sometimes can move very much through the female line. We really have both alive inside of us.
Yeah.
That's part of the rebalancing and harmonizing which is happening here.
So
definitely not having a child now. Thank you.
What you...
He's going to kill you.
No, it's okay. It's absolutely okay. And I think it's really, really, really beautiful. The now. And because now it means there is a kind of an awareness of some things which hurt inside, and that they can be lifted, and the now is really kind of okay. The more It's an incredible mess. We are all incredibly fucked up. It's a mess. We are all incredibly fucked up as mothers and fathers. And we all try to do the best we can. And we all damage our children. But it makes a lot of difference if you have the courage to be aware of that. To see, okay, you know, there is something really fucked up. Because if you fuck up, it makes such a difference when you're able to say sorry to your children. This is my fuck up. It gives the freedom back. And often for a lifetime, you know, we wait for our parents to say sorry about the things which really hurt us. Because we got always the message, it's because of you, it's because of you. And we don't understand why it's because of us, because there must be something really wrong with us. And again, this is the repeating of the story. Through this, we kind of, you know, try to compensate this one way or the other way, and we mess up our children again. So it's a very loaded subject. And in which, and this is basically what the talk of us both is about, in which so easily the male is giving the role of the perpetrator. And the male is giving himself the role as perpetrator. The amount of guilt which is there, can be there towards women, is quite big, because you're responsible. In the end, you are responsible for your family. You're responsible for the well-being of your female. If you are together with a girlfriend for a period and it's not it and you have to leave her, you know, you're the one who destroys her life. This is the guilt which is everywhere. You cannot leave somebody. So again, two different positions in this. Either you leave all the time, or you cannot leave. It's difficult. And for a male to really come into the role of being a perpetrator, for most males, this is incredibly difficult. So they move over all their borders sometimes to stay in a relationship they're not happy in. And that shows to the children as well. Not to become the bad guy. To be okay. So this is an example.
And then they say, I stayed for you.
I stayed for you. Exactly. This is horrible. How could you do this to a female? Then you are a perpetrator.
To a child.
Or to a child. Yes. It's horrible.
But can it be the same with the female?
Absolutely. But now we're talking about males.
No. But could it be a male aspect in if you are a woman, it can be vivid as much. I understand you. You talk about male, but it's dense around an opposite in all of us.
Yeah.
And it is why I asked about care and protection, about care and love, because sometimes you have it about a female and a male aspect, and it's easy to pick it up at the body from a male. Yeah. But it's so complicated more.
Yeah. Much more, because the female can be the male, and the male can be the female, and it can switch over all the time. And you know, I'm polarizing to make something clear, because if I really start to kind of move like this, it gets really, really complex.
No, I needed to say it again.
You're totally right. Yeah.
Could you say something more about, you said something about when the girl hits puberty and the father going into a kind of sexual bravado.
Yeah.
Could you say something more about that in terms of the basis of...
The sexual bravado. That's what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The father.
The father. So, male sexuality is as vulnerable as female sexuality in the basis. You know, and one of the things in male sexuality is the early ejaculation. I think you say it in English. Premature ejaculation. So that's something which, you know, if this happens to you as a male, for most males is an incredible fear. Because, you know, it's like the female didn't feel anything and you come already, and, you know, then that's where it stops and there is a freeze. So the more stress there is, the quicker you come. I can explain it, but this is not in this course, I think, right now. Through the nerve system, how it's working, it's connected with the sympathetic and the parasympathetic part of the nerve system. But to have an erection for a male, he needs to be relaxed. And to have an orgasm, the sympathicus needs to kick in. So if you're too stressed, you come very quickly. So this is a basis of a lot to kind of, you know, to disguise this. To become, so this has to be disguised. When this is the case, it has to be disguised in a way. So there is an incredible vulnerability and insecurity around sexuality in a lot of males. And often, what there is this kind of, because sexuality cannot be expressed in a free and open way, and not exactly. So there is this one thing of to control, also to control the female. I'm telling you much more is what you ask for, but still it's important. That means that the female has to lie still. She's not allowed to move. She's not allowed to be active too much. She has to be kind of in a certain position, and then we can perform. Mm-hmm. So it's also a little bit a death to the female sexual expression because of the fear of the male to fail. So when you look to this whole dance between female and males, we see it in a lot of relationships. What's happening is that sexuality becomes not fun anymore. You know, it's something which has to happen, but it's not really fun. You know, you're not free in it, you don't really feel each other, it's a disappointment time after time. We get rejected, the female kind of, you know, doesn't feel so much for it, so she rejects. That's very painful. A rejection, it means that you're not good enough, or the male starts to reject the female. I don't feel for it right now. This is immediately personal. You're not beautiful enough, you're not good enough, you're not interesting to him anymore. Whereas the other female, that's the female reaction. Because a male always wants. That's another thing. You know, it's complex. But what you see is that the sexual relationship between mother and the father is not working very good. So this can be compensated by the male, by kind of, you know, blowing himself up a little bit. As you know, it's often that people who talk the most freely about sexuality in families, in a family counseling, there is a lot of frustration behind it. There is a kind of freedom from the father, from the mother, you know, in how is talked about sexuality with a kind of grossness. It's not about feelings anymore. It's about the act. It's about, you know, a scoring. There is a grossness in it. It's not a refined love, which is part of sexuality, which is talked about. It's a kind of pose. So from this pose, when girls are growing up, sometimes fathers come to a position where they have the same attitude of, I cannot give it another word, is grossness. In this grossness there is a kind of, not a real feeling for borders, it's pretense, it's ego, in which they kind of, you know, when there's a family there or there is in surroundings, they take the daughter to the lab, or they point out how beautiful the breasts of the daughter are developing.
What's happened?
What?
It happens.
That happens.
Yeah.
which is incredible.
Basically sexually derogative comments from the father towards the daughter. Like,
which
you're
is
a sex object.
So the daughter is kind of pushed to be a sex object, and sometimes, you know, a sex object in a bigger.
Brought into shame.
Yeah, brought into shame. It's the shame of the father around his own failing sexuality, which is basically, you know, transferred to the daughter. And this is a light form of kind of going over borders. You know, it's worse when the father is sexually abusing the daughter. But the abuse is already in exposing the daughter in her own private sexuality publicly, which is horrible. It's very humiliating and very damaging. So when you look at the male side, it's a failing sex. He looks like, you know, he's the sex man, he knows everything, but it's basically what's behind it is a deep woundedness in his own sexuality and often a failing sexuality. This is an answer to your question or not? Or didn't I get you?
Enough, yeah.
It's enough?
Yeah.
Shut up!
No, it's not. It's not quite what I had in mind, but it does. It overlaps. Thank you.
It overlapped.
Yeah.
Yes. Good. Thank you.
Is there also a blueprint or an already existing energy that is holding the masculine in its highest form that can enter our system in some way?
I don't understand your question exactly. Exactly. Oh, you can give an answer. Yes. Yeah.
I don't understand your question. No, it's just a body movement. What?
No, it was just forward because I didn't understand it to get it better. Again.
Two sentences for context. In a dream, there was a frame, and in the frame there was a man, and he was very much alive, and he asked permission to come into my body.
Yeah.
And I said yes. And my whole body moved in the bed, like moved, not sexually, and really came into my body. And I don't know, I tried to find him in this world. He looks like an actor in Australia, that's all I found. I'm being silly now, but you know, something happened very profoundly and truly. And it's beyond me, but I know that there's something that already holds this, the integrity of what we're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something inside yourself. This is the free epigenetic male.
And more.
And more.
Yeah.
More.
You know, Jesus is also a very pure form which generations of nuns and females have fully blended with in order to awaken their male aspect and to come to balance beyond the female male polarity within themselves. So he's not the only one, the only healed male outside of the physical, in template, alive, who is here as a support to move over the gender where there's a need towards the female or whatever, towards the female aspects. In the end, it's not bodies anymore, but it's something else happening. And there's many, many dimensions and many, many histories, so I think it's more than just family in this case, because I know the story already.
Yeah, that's possible, but it's always, and this is important to understand, it's an example, it's maybe an initiation which is possible, but it always moves through to your own male.
Yeah.
There is not another way, because I can only meet female through my own female part. If I really want to meet another female in the depth, it's through my female part. My female part can recognize the female in you.
Yeah.
So what is happening in the end is a blend between male and female inside yourself.
Yeah.
And that's the important part. And this can both move through the female who comes or the male who comes. So some males have deep experiences, with having dreams or meditation in which a female comes, a goddess comes, and you find unity with the goddess. And some females have deep experiences in which a male is coming and you have unity with this male. And it brings in the end always the blend between female and male inside yourself. And that gives a deep change. And it's also that the body starts to move. It rebalances everything, physically and energetically.
Yeah. And is that called onbevlekt ontvangen in het Nederlands?
No, I don't think you get pregnant from it.
No.
No, but it is an experience of unity between male and female, which is often initiated by a female or a male master.
Conjunctio.
What?
Conjunctio.
What?
Conjunctio. No.
Conjunctio.
Conjunctio. No.
That's the name?
Yeah.
That could be. Yes. Yeah.
Can you repeat it?
Yeah.
I didn't hear that.
The conjunctio. It's a junction. Yeah, it's conjunctio. The male and female.
Yeah.
Experience like this, is this more an awakening of your own male/female side?
No, it's not.
Need an external.
It can be external. It can also be internal. Both is possible.
I mean, I get the internal, like the spiritual awakening of for example, being a woman, the male aspect or the male side. But when it's external, how does it? Can you explain that?
When you look to the whole realm of inner growth, then there is a lot of different levels of teachers and teachings, and there is a lot of teachers who are here, who are not in a physical body, and who can give initiations. So basic initiation is the start of a whole process you're moving through. It can be an appearance. Some people have an appearance. Some people have the feeling that they're kind of, that at once it's a kind of an awakening. And this awakening can come from inside, but also can be induced from outside by a teacher. So in Christianity, it's so that, when you become a priest, you get certain blessings. And some of these blessings are initiations. Also,
sacraments.
Yeah, but in a lot of religions it's like this. It's kind of, some energetic areas which were closed are kind of opened up. That's a way to say it. So one of the initiations is the initiations in which male and female come together inside yourself. So this can happen when you're there in your own process, totally natural inside yourself, but often what's happening, it's initiated from outside. This is now what you're ready for, and there is such a kind of a need for people to progress, to grow, that often outside teachers and masters are just waiting for people who's more or less ready, kind of, to initiate them, to quicken the process a little bit, to support the process, and to hold part of the process. So initiations are experiences you remember later on. They come back, they stay with you. It's an opening which stays with you, which is leaving a deep spiritual expression. Often this is why people start working on themselves or start meditating. So one of my initiations was that I was sitting in the garden with somebody and the air opened and Jesus stepped, or Christ, it was not Jesus, Christ stepped through this opening in the air and just in front of me. And he was so pure, There was such a purity in this presence that I kind of, I've just fell apart. I could feel my own inner not pure, how impure I was. And kind of I fell apart. It was not a pleasant thing, but it was incredibly beautiful. And that kind of started with me a whole process of purification, of understanding, of becoming more natural and starting to work on myself. But the shocking thing was his purity. For me, for somebody else it can be something, his loving maybe appearance or whatever, but this was where it hit me. Like, oh shit.
So all these experiences in Catholicism of Mary, these are part of these initiations,
yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Nothing more.
Sometimes. Yeah.
Other times?
Other times there is a kind of mimicry thing that happens, and which is also worthwhile.
Yeah.
Because mimicry. Oh. So you hear that this experience is out there, and so the body creates a mimicry of it, and it's sometimes not quite the same thing, but it's also a kind of rehearsal.
Yeah.
And of course, no experience is ever the same in any one individual.
No. Again, it's very personal.
It's so precisely timed, and so much, basically because it's coming through the intelligence of need. We think we have free choice, and we project that free choice onto other dimensions, but everything there is moving like water according to need, just to fulfill the need. Break?
Yeah.
May I?
Yeah.
You say something about most teachers this time are not good in the body?
No. I said there is a lot of teachers who are not physical. People who went through part of development during their physical lives and are still lingering around to support. Yeah, guidance. Yeah.
Break. Little break.